I'm Jonathan Larson with TYT Investigates, and this is TYTI Daily. Every Friday, we do what I like to call Media Analysis Fridays because I'm no good at marketing, and no one will watch anything called Media Analysis Fridays. But in the interest of truth in advertising, that's what I try to do for our Friday editions of TYTI Daily. And in the interest of full candor and confession, in the spirit of confession, I will start off by saying that ironically, there's a little justice happening here, but I posted a video this morning about Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, who showed up for hearing yesterday in Congress without having submitted or read documents that were relevant to a national story about how she was not helping and was actively opposing help for students who were in debt because they had been defrauded by their colleges, and the education department wasn't helping them out. And she wasn't prepared for the testimony, and so my headline was something like Betsy DeVos, unprepared for class. Ha ha ha. And then of course, that's exactly what I'm guilty of right now. Not only am I 5 minutes late for class, I am unprepared for class. And so trying to make lemons out of lemonade, I wanted to talk in abstract terms anyway about the reason I was late for class, which is meaning unprepared for class, meaning I don't have anything prepared to talk about today. I usually spend an hour or so before doing the media analysis episode looking at media, reviewing ideas I've had during the week about what to talk about, formulating a coherent position, and I have nothing. What I do have is an hour and a half or so long phone call that I just got off of, which I did not expect to have, with someone I did not expect to talk to. And I'm not here to drop some big bombshell or anything like that. I have to go back and review my notes and see exactly what they told me. But I wanted to talk about the human aspect, right? And the person I was speaking with is a grown man and talked at times about getting chills and getting teary, talking about his experience and his truth and where he's coming from. And he and I are structurally adversarial. I have not made this person's life easier since I've begun reporting on South Bend. And the phone call did not start off in the spirit of kumbaya, shall we say. But he was a human who was open to having a conversation with me, and I tried to do my best to reciprocate. And I had a conversation yesterday as well with someone from South Bend who has not spoken to me and did. And these are people whose lives I have made worse by a lot of measures. Not in the sense that I have done something wrong, but in the sense that, in the same sense that the presidential campaign of Pete Buttigieg has, and he has acknowledged this, and I have no reason to think that he hasn't, made the requisite apologies and tried to mitigate the effects. But when the mayor of a city of 102,000 people runs for president, that makes things harder for the people who are not going to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, even if he wins, right? Pete Buttigieg will be out of office when the new year dawns on January 1st. It will be a new mayor, a new administration, new people in some positions, but the city will have to continue on. It will have to continue trying to define itself. It will have to continue doing the work, however much you think Buttigieg did or did not accomplish. It will continue striving towards the same goals. And I think we lose sight sometimes of the fact that there are real people, and I don't mean by any stretch of the imagination to suggest that South Bend or Indiana is more real than New York City or New York or any community that touches oceanic water. If you are honest, most people in those sort of landlocked, depressed areas, a lot of them will tell you, I'd love to move to New York or love to move to LA. So I don't buy the notion of them being real Americans any more than someone who has risked their lives to come here. That to me is a real American. I grew up in New York City, and people would be like, oh, you're a real New Yorker. I was born in New York City, literally, and grew up here. And I would say it seems to me that people who decide that they want to leave the place that they know, the things and people that they know, to be in New York, that to me is a real New Yorker. Anyway, my point is that in any news coverage, but certainly in presidential campaigns, people can become collateral. And we only talk about those people in the framework of how they affect what we want to happen in terms of the politics, the electoral politics. And so if if it makes Pete Buttigieg look bad, then everyone jumps on that and everyone dumps on the appropriate people and everyone elevates the other people. And we tend to lose sight of what I like to sort of describe as the idea that everyone's the hero of their own story. No, very few people wake up and say, what evil shall I do today? They're generally trying to balance a lot of complicated stuff. Like when we say we hate politicians, we're all politicians. We're all trying to please our own constituencies, to preserve our own special interests in a way that we feel is honorable. And so I suppose there's an ancillary request here, which is, please don't assume the worst of me either in the role that I'm playing. But the bigger point is to say, and I forgot one thing which I wanted to add. I came off of this sort of really long. It was a good conversation, but it was fraught. There's a lot of tough stuff that people are dealing with here. So I came out of that fairly, emotionally charged or energized hour and a half, and I saw that I had gotten a text message from someone who I had texted earlier in the week about a story I was working on. And the text said, this is his son. You'll have to call him if you want comment because he can't read. And I guess that sort of crystallized everything for me, that all the people we're talking about, whether you're on their side, not on their side, everyone's dealing with stuff. And so I'm a big believer in the adversarial system, right? I think checks and balances is code for go fight. I think the founding fathers set this engine up as a conflict engine that is supposed to fight with itself so that positive outcomes come out of it. So I believe in the fight and I want the fight. And as a journalist, part of my role is to throw some of those punches. If not from me, because I'm not a commentator, then to say, well, that person is throwing this punch. What do you, other person, have to say about that punch? So in some senses, I'm making conflict happen, and that makes it harder for people in South Bend. That makes it harder for everyone. But what I think might make it easier for everyone is if we can remember that all of us are real people and that very, very few of us are actively working towards toxic ends, at least not knowingly. And so I guess what I'm trying to say in my typically long-winded way is, let's try to be kind with each other. Let's try to assume best intentions, even / especially of those with whom we disagree. And whether or not that counts as media analysis for Media Analysis Fridays, I don't know. I apologize if I'm leaving anyone feeling ripped off. And if you're watching this, maybe live, maybe later on, and you're from South Bend and you think, wow, maybe he's not such a bad guy afterwards, you can reach us at theyoungturks@protonmail.com if you got something you want to tell me. All right, so I'm going to shut up now because, as I mentioned at the beginning, I am unprepared for class today. So I apologize for that because one of the things I balance is the obligation I do feel to the folks who have subscribed, which I hope is all of you. Please let people know to subscribe. I feel that when you subscribe, when you show up to watch, that I now incur an obligation, and I fell short of meeting it today. So I apologize if you're feeling ripped off. Let's see what you have to say. Alice Murphy says, good morning. Good morning, Alice Murphy. DLJ says, happy Saturday all. DLJ, not in our time zone. Nathaniel Earl says, good morning, John, and thank you for all you do. Thank you for all you do, Nathaniel. And a point I try to make a lot, that's a lie. I usually forget it. But when you remind me, I try to acknowledge that all the work that I do, that we do, that's yours. You made that happen. So boy, I hope you feel ownership, at least when it's good. Feel free to disown it when we screw up. Zane Raval says it's Friday. Or Ravai. I'm not sure if I'm getting your name right there, Zane. So maybe it's Friday where you are, but maybe it's Saturday where DLJ is. Maybe it's a Friday of the mind. DLJ says not in the best time zones. Okay, see, we're fighting already. Good. We've achieved the goal. Caranola says, good morning on this historic day. Jonathan Hart, Alice Hart, Nathaniel Hart, DLJ Hart, Zane Hart. So this is embarrassing, but are they voting on impeachment today? Is it going in the committee? This is how far out of that I have been. Totally unprepared for class. Nathaniel Earl says, good morning to you all. Zane says, good morning. Irene Esson, I'm not sure, says, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, says, great job, what you do matters, thank you. Thank you, Aaron, maybe, for being a part of it. And even if you choose not to donate financially or you cannot donate financially, you being here, you engaging, you sharing our work, what we do with other people, that is real. That is just as tangible and just as meaningful and inspires just as much gratitude and verklempt as does the cash. Thank you. Edward Cranium says it's time for the Senate's integrity check. So apparently there's an impeachment thing going on. I'm getting that now. I'm getting that. Heather Vesper says, I really need to remember to turn the sound up on my phone so I hear the live stream notification. Haha. Good morning, everyone. Allie J says, good morning, peeps. Alice Murphy says, good morning, Caranola. Caranola says, the size of the cover-up of Jonathan's breaking story on Buttigieg, incredible. Did you even see what he wrote about Bernie Sanders when he was in high school 20 years ago? Exact opposite now. I did read Buttigieg's essay about Sanders months ago, and I liked it. But I don't remember it enough to be at a point where I can say, aha, gotcha, hypocrite. And just, it's my job to be adversarial, at least structurally, towards Buttigieg, but I can do that without hating him, and I don't hate him. And I can also do that without being blind to his positive traits, but also I don't have to abandon my own principles in terms of how we think about people, especially politicians. And one thing I'm not crazy about is what I call sort of hypocrisy watch. This idea that we can go back 20 years and say, aha, he said a thing then that he's not saying now, in a way that suggests we've found a piece of evil within the man's soul. For one thing, it's essentialist, and I don't think people work that way. We don't have, homunculi. Was it Descartes who talked about the ghost in the machine? I don't remember. Bad philosophy major. But we don't have homunculi who really think things and know what we really believe, and then drives the machine outward from that. Pete Buttigieg, 20 years ago, as the writer of that essay, is not the same person as Pete Buttigieg now. It would be bad if he were. He's going to be a different person 20 years from now. He's probably going to be a different person 1 year from now. And I think it's fine to ask people, walk me through that change, evolution, regression, however you see it, that's fine. But I'm not sure that that our civic discourse, our civilian engagement in politics is super well served by being hypocrisy cops. Zane Revise says, This guy is awesome. He's always breaking news. I'm not sure if you're talking about me or not, but I actually feel like I'm not doing enough of it. I have literally about, why am I holding up 10 fingers when I have about 7 stories I'm working on? But like I said, I just got a couple interviews that I was a little bit unprepared for. That's the theme today, I think. And so now my job is to sort of back up and figure out what exactly do I have here and what am I obliged to do with it. Edward Cranium says, I just realized Edward Cranium, is that Ed Head? Ed Head? Is that, do people call you that? Is that just me? Says, I'm a real Ohioan, and I apologize if that came off as making fun of your name, if that is your real name. I guess I assumed, and I apologize again, if Cranium is not your actual real name. Says, I'm a real Ohioan, born and raised. I realized that's a bad thing. No, come on, and became a real Californian. No regrets, my people are here. I refuse to live in a red state. I believe that Ohio is still a purple state at most, for what it's worth. And I also wrestle with the idea of, do you leave a place when it becomes overly anti-woman, overly anti-immigrant, overly xenophobic, whatever it might be? Do you leave, or are you, to what extent do you and your family, have an obligation to stay and be part of a beachhead for love and kindness and compassion? I don't know. I don't have answers to that. I would also like to live in California. Ali J says, Caranola, I read that. It made me sad, frankly. This is referring, I think, to the Sanders essay that Buttigieg wrote. This supposedly brilliant guy was on the right path, but then sold his soul for political power. As an atheist, and as a materialist in the philosophical sense, I not only don't believe in souls, but I reject their utility as an explanatory mechanism. Interrogating someone's soul is not a good predictive device for how people operate in the real world. We've seen that for decades. Assuming that people have souls that are bing, crystallized at birth or 9 months before or at the dawn of time only to find its vessel and will be the same for all of eternity, that does not hold up to science, and it does not help us explain how people work or, unfortunately, sometimes don't work properly. So let's reject that notion. And the other thing I would say is what I said about Hillary, which is, if you think they're corrupt, if you think they can be swayed, then sway them, right? If you think that Pete Buttigieg is adopting positions that you think in his heart of hearts, his soul, his essence, he disagrees with, but is doing for political expediency, make it politically expedient for him to drop them. If Medicare for All becomes clearly, not just in the polls, but in the streets, in the voting booth, if Medicare for All is what you believe in, and that becomes the overwhelmingly popular way to go, you will have presidential candidates more who support that. And it's not that I'm unaware that there are studies that show that congressional voting patterns sync up with the beliefs of their donors, no matter how many people believe otherwise. But that just means we have more work to do, and it means we've let the system get out of whack. We can't let ourselves off the hook by saying, well, they're corrupt, nothing to do. If they're corrupt, there's more to do. Harumph. Harumph! Nathaniel Earl says, so true, he does awesome reporting, always has facts, always has facts. I literally let you guys down on exactly that today. I had nothing today for you. So I apologize. Thank you very much for the kind words, but I did not live up to the standard you have come to expect from me today. Troy T says, kudos to you, sir, for doing your job. You're doing the job that local South Bend media should have been doing years ago. Again, kudos to you, sir. Keep doing what you're doing. Caranola says, thank you, Troy. Thank you. I didn't mean to skip over that. As longtime viewers know, I guess that's what, 6 months now, of if you've watched TYTI Daily, you know that I'm uncomfortable with compliments, and I do terribly with them. So you're typically eager to move on. Nothing to see here. Thank you. I appreciate it. Caranola says, and look at this worldwide movement against the truth and investigative journalism. Yikes, the OK Boomer Brits just gave a racist xenophobe a mandate for Brexit. Protests worldwide. Zane Ravai, again, I apologize, Zane, if I'm not getting your name correctly, says TYT has to be the only news place that lets Jonathan just run wherever a story takes him. Well, that's true at the moment, but that's because I work here. I will say that TYT has been uniquely supportive of my editorial autonomy and providing resources when I thought they were needed. I don't like going to South Bend because I typically put on 5 pounds, and that's not due to Indiana cuisine. That's just because I'm an undisciplined traveler, and so I snarf up food. But I like being in South Bend. I have come to have affection for people who live there, and I enjoy talking with them, and I goof around with the folks at the hotel who know me now, and so I try not to go more than I think merits the use of TYT's money, which is your money. You guys pay for me to go there. Thanks for the hotel. The people are lovely there and they treat me nicely. But I will say that having worked, if you know my background, I've worked at other news outlets, national news outlets, much more corporate news outlets. And when I have had difficulties telling stories, it has not been, in my experience, because some sinister behind the scenes force wasn't going to let the truth out, man. It tended to be because not all of those places are built to, most of them are built to capitalize on and utilize as their raw material pre-digested stuff. Has it been in the New York Times or Huffington Post? Do we already know what the story looks like, and then we'll just go and talk about it? You don't see them breaking a lot of stories, and when they do, it's not typically the shows. It's we now bring in guy who does reporting to tell us a thing. Hi, guy in studio. I just found out a thing. Here's the thing. Back to you, and then that's it. So it's been more sort of structural and systemic stuff that I've had to grapple with to tell stories, and I have broken some stories at some of the bigger outlets. It's never, as far as I've been aware, been because someone said, we've got to do a cover up here. Now, I'm not Ronan Farrow, so he might have a different answer when it comes to that. In any case, thank you, Zane, for the kind words and for acknowledging the support that TYT has given me consistently because of the support that you've given TYT. Thank you. DLJ says there's a fine line between careless, selfish, and toxic, not just in politics, but in relationships too. As someone who has found himself on both sides of all those lines, I would suggest that that's true, although sometimes the line is pretty clear. Rapid Burrito says, you, sir, are a gorgeous, look it up, he actually said that. Now I lost it. Dedicated and kind-hearted man. I am also a screw-up, and I am petty and subject to all the normal failings of humanity. I just put on what I hope is an aspirational face because I know you guys are watching. But I'm glad I fooled at least one person. Thank you. There's a phrase, I'm blanking on his name now. The guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. He has a phrase in the book Illusions where he says something like, you teach best what you most need to learn. So when I sort of espouse these very high-minded things, it's probably an indication that I myself am not doing a great job at living up to it. And I'm reminding myself more than anyone else. But thank you, Rapid Burrito. I'm not sure why I assumed that's a man. Maybe because burrito is masculine in Spanish? I don't know. Anyway, flustered again. So moving on. Thank you. Karen Ola says, no, it's indeed sad this Buttigieg guy has become a monstrous marionette. I tend to reject that kind of explanatory mechanism or framing. Caranola says, you were looking good on the conversation last week, Jonathan. Thank you very much. Was it just last week? Wow. I'm apparently going to be on Ring of Fire soon, where I will look my best. I promise you, because it's radio. So I think I'm supposed to tape that interview next week. I don't know if I was allowed to release that information, but you learned it here first. Now watch, they'll cancel and I'll be like, but it was true, I swear. Heather Vesper says impeachment has been voted and approved. It goes to the Senate now. Oh, the full House voted. Okay, wow. I really need to pay more attention to this stuff. Rapid Burrito says it's Full Metal Alchemist. I don't know what that means, but that is pretty badass. Kat Redding says it's the emoji. The tree is, hello. The tree is decorated. Thank you for all you do for us in South Bend. Your work is so important to this community. Well, thank you. And as I should have said before, my byline is sort of the tip of the spear of the work, I suppose. But you know, the people who make that happen are TYT's supporters and the people in South Bend who have shared with me and have trusted with me. The guy I spoke with today, you know, there's no reason to trust me, right? It is my job to get people to read my stuff. And what makes people read stuff? It's look, I'm revealing an evil secret about someone. That's the most effective way to get people to read your stuff. And so I have every incentive in the world to craft my stories and my headlines and my social media, to whatever extent I'm involved in that, to make it look like I found evil, come look, evil here, Dodson. Sorry, Jurassic Park callback. But they rarely are. And there are people in South Bend who think X, and they have trusted in me to tell their story. And there are people who disagree with that, who have also trusted in me. And whatever I've been able to do is because of those people making a leap. It's not like they can look at my work and say, yep, this guy will never mess up. He'll never do me wrong. I tell people, I literally told the guy on the phone today, you're probably not going to be happy with everything about what I say. And I'm not perfect and I might screw up. And so it's not even that he can 100% trust me. I'm not even telling him to, but he's still talking to me, right? And that whatever you think of him or what he has to say, that act is laudable. That act is worthy of praise and I think of crediting. So that moves me. That moves me. I you know, part of my job is not to let that move how I do my reporting, but on a human level, I can recognize that there are people in South Bend who in some respects all share common goals of making the community better. And apart from whoever may genuinely espouse and believe in outright racist tenets, everyone has a relatively clear idea of what a more just society looks like. And the only reason they're talking to me is because I'm something of a last resort, which indicates that systemically lots of people, including those in the system, including some of those running the system, don't have the kind of recourse that they should to speak their truth, to share their facts, to call into question what needs to be questioned, to shine lights where lights need to be shined. And why am I still talking? Because you guys get all this, and there's no reason that I need to over-explain. So, thank you, Kat Redding. Edward Cranium immediately pops the mood, for which I am very appreciative by saying, yeah, Ed Head. Okay, thank you, Mr. Cranium. Travis Washington says, with life being as busy as it is, it's so awesome that you and TYT bring us the news we need to make informative decisions. Thank you very much, Travis. And at the risk of impinging on your undoubtedly busy day, I would ask that TYT not be your only news source. And when I say news source, I don't mean that your other sources of information need to be journalistic outlets, but I wouldn't want anyone to rely solely on what you hear on TYT. Be skeptical of media, including us, including me. Turn to other news sources, see what they're saying, but also turn to non-news sources. There's information to be had out there from non-news sources. Go to them as well. When your belief about something is going to affect your decision about something, for instance, in case of the voting, then do whatever work you need to determine whether that belief is true before you actually act on it. That would be what I ask. And I'm just like touched to tears that anyone, let alone the folks who are watching right now, consider us worthy of being in that mix. But I would also say, don't let us be the only thing in that mix. Be skeptical, which doesn't mean reject things. It means do the work. So I'm not saying that you're not. I'm just being clear, I hope, that anytime I accept or acknowledge whatever kind words you have to say about TYT, I'm not in that act implying that we're all you need. There's no one source that's all you need. Caranola says, I like that Anna Kasparian went over all that Jonathan broke about Buttigieg. That helps smash the huge cover-up going on. These damn Democrat leaders, they're willing to take a dive for Trump. And then there's a very angry face. Zane says, the depths that this scandal keeps dipping is insane. Nathaniel Earl says, no, you didn't. We never get this from mainstream media. Well, I will say that Hill TV, Crystal Ball over at the Hill, if you consider that mainstream, they've covered some of this work. But I'm certainly not going to dispute that there are lots of reporters around Pete Buttigieg all day, pretty much. They won't tell me whether or not I can get an interview. I've been asking since April. They won't tell me whether I can be on the bus or whether I can't be on the bus, and if so, what the reasoning is. And none of the corporate media people who do have access to him are asking him specific questions about what we've reported. Just as simply, simple ones like these excerpts were published from these documents that your lawyers have had for years. Are they authentic or not? That's all. It's a yes or no question. I haven't gotten an answer, but there are people who could ask him every day. Heather Vesper says, it's almost the weekend, Jonathan. Cut yourself some slack and recharge your batteries. You deserve it. We're all unprepared for the day today. Okay, fair enough, right? I guess these days, unprepared for class. And maybe we let Betsy DeVos off the hook for this too. Maybe we are now maybe this stage of late stage capitalism is called unprepared for class. Maybe that's the case, and we should give ourselves a pass for all of it. I got a lot of incompletes in college before finally making up the work, most of it, some of it. Kat Redding says, I think that you're a very likable guy. Thank you, Kat. And the feeling is reciprocated. Punks for Progress. This is I hope you guys have checked out the mashup that Punks for Progress did. I don't know if it was their music, but it was a really cool thing that they did about the war on Thanksgiving. Not cool because they included a sample of me talking about it. What was it I said? Operation Gobble is go, or something like that. But they used it, and but the entire thing was really informative and interesting, and made me think and moved where my head is on Thanksgiving a bit. So I encourage you to go check it out. Anyway, Punks for Progress says, the smartest thing Cenk ever did, okay, emphasis added, ever did, was carve out a space for people like you, Ken, and Emma. TYT became real when they hired real journalists. Yeah, that's a compliment, pal, Punks for Progress says. Deal with it. So in my face, I guess. Thank you very much for that. Zane says, I understand that. You make my membership fees worth every penny. Man, I've got to be unprepared for class more often because I'm just digging the love today. Thank you, guys. Heather Vesper says, yes, Punks, approve and agree. Travis Washington says, I'm in a fixed income, but I gladly carve out a piece of my income to support you and TYT. You're killing me, guys. Thank you, Travis. Boy, thank you guys. Nathaniel Earl says, yes, he does. We get real facts, truth, and we get feedback time with our reporters. Okay, so I'm going to step in here for a second and say that you guys are supposed to be challenging me here. Like, hey, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? So that way, let me put it this way. When I'm just going through reading comments, if you guys are all being nice to me, then it just looks like I'm being self-aggrandizing. So even if you don't mean it, it'll be our little secret. Throw in like a, hey, why do you do this? Or what's up with that, man? Just so I can at least talk about something other than how wonderful we are and how wonderful you are and how I'm rooting for South Bend and all that stuff. Okay, so Rapid Burrito says you were talking about homunculi. Look it up, folks. I'm kidding. I'm sure most of you know what homunculi are. It's from the show Full Metal Alchemist. Oh, I see. You said Ghost in the Shell, I think, which isn't exactly wrong. But so Ghost in the Shell, I believe, is anime. I think I'm a comic book collector. If I haven't shared that before, I know I have actually because I pushed my own comic, my webcomic. But I'm not an anime guy. Ghost in the Shell is anime, very popular, I think. I think it's critically acclaimed for all I know. I was referring to the Ghost in the Machine, which is sort of the popular phrasing that people use for the philosophical concept of dualism. I was talking about souls, and when the concept of a soul still had some scientific legitimacy, which it no longer does, sorry, and people began to grapple with what does it mean for there to be a soul. It was kind of spoken about, and I'm forgetting what the Latin might be, or maybe it was French, I don't remember. It was spoken about as if the body is a machine and there is a ghost in it running it. In other words, people hadn't really fully grappled with the idea that you could not separate the electrical synaptic activity from the thoughts that they literally were. And so people sort of imagined the body as something that was driven around by the soul going, oh, let's raise our hand here, body, nice work, body, and let's raise our hand here. So that's what I was talking about. And one of the refutations of this was the infinitely regressing homunculi, meaning, well, if there's a ghost in the machine, who's driving the ghost, right? It has an explanatory deficit. It does not explain where the ultimate driving comes from, because if every shell has a ghost in it, then every ghost must have a ghost in it as well. What is the starting point for intentionality, right? So that's what I was getting at. And maybe we should get back to you guys complimenting me. Zane says, I went on so long, you guys have had a chance to get ahead of me here. Zane says, Zane is laughing at Rapid's point. Pear says, that was my uncle's name, says, damn, you are more Swedish than me. So I'm not sure exactly what prompted it. Oh, you're probably seeing this stuff on the tree. That might be it. People often assume I'm Swedish because of my last name. Little secret, S-E-N is Danish or Norwegian. And in truth, I am 1/4 Danish. That's where the S-E-N comes from. The irony is I'm half Swedish because my mom was born in Sweden. So if you guess from my name or from my tree that I'm Swedish, that's actually true, but it's not because of my name. And yes, there is some, we got your paper hearts going on there, some straw, stuff like that. So, good Yule. My mom's probably going to chime in now and correct my pronunciation because that's what she does. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Zane is saying nice things about me, which YouTube was hiding because there's vulgarity in there. I just revealed it so you can see it, because I'm okay with vulgarity. I try not to do it here because then it just triggers all kinds of mechanisms and blocks and guards and YouTubes, whatever. But I'm generally okay with vulgarity as long as it's not hurtful, right? If it's bodily functions, if it's sex stuff, things where no one's being hurt or diminished, then go nuts. Kat says, oh, I see. I could become the story at any point. Thanks for the byline. I wish everyone came with bylines. Don't trust me. Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, that should be the case, right? If trust can mean a few different things. It can mean everything I am saying to you is literally true and I will never do anything that you don't like, or it can mean that I have your best intentions at heart. I will tell you a quick little story about my son. At one point, I guess he called me out for being, in his eyes, not truthful about something, I think it was, and said something like, you lied to me, or something like that. And I said, buddy, I lied. I've been lying to you since before you could speak, before you knew what words were. And the story I told him was of, I think literally either his first bath or the first time he fell down and hurt himself. And I said, when it happened, either the submersion in water or the falling and skinning of knees or whatever it was, the first thing you did was you looked right at me to see what is the status of my situation here. And I lied to you with my face and said something like, oh, did him make a boo-boo, or something ridiculous like that. I didn't actually say that, but my face was like, oh, yeah, yay, we're all good. And my face was a lie, right? Because my natural instinctive response would have been, oh my God, are you okay? And I have literally seen, and you probably have too if you're a parent, I have seen kids fall down, look at their knee, see the blood, not cry, look at their parents, see the fear and the panic on the parents' face, and burst into tears. And the reality is that the kid actually is fine. And so your emotional truth is fear, but the factual reality is that they are fine. And so you put on a fake face. And as a journalist, I try to put on a similar face, which is not fake, but it suppresses whatever my instinctive, possibly wrong emotional reactions might be. You are trying to create a space in which people feel free to speak. But these are grown-ups, not children now. So you try to be, or I try to be, honest with them. And I try to explain that your choice to speak to me does not oblige me, and nor should you expect me to write an article that is entirely the way you want it to be. So when I say trust in me to speak with me, I don't mean you're going to like it. I don't mean you're going to agree with all of it. I don't mean I'm going to exclude things that you want to excluded. It means the only thing I'm going to promise you is that I'm going to do my level best to be open-minded, not to make assumptions about people's motives, and to work within the very real limitations, logistical and otherwise, of journalism. I'm going to work within those limitations to represent things, if not honestly, because I can't guarantee that it's going to be perfectly accurate. I can only tell you this is what someone told me. If they have it wrong, or if they don't have the whole story, it's a game of telephone, and all I can do is do my best to replicate and account for the context of what I'm hearing. But it's not a guarantee that you're going to like it. And so therefore, you as the reader should do your own work and figure it out. It's all incremental. These are all imperfect steps. Each story that I do is an imperfect step trying to shake something else loose, right? If I report something and it's got something in it that is not factual, well, maybe the reality that corrects this also advances our understanding on other fronts, right? And so we make mistakes as part of the process. It's like I try to explain with science. Science is not a set of facts that we believe are true. Science is a process that we embrace as a process of approaching truth. And so when science gives us a result that turns out not to be true, that's not a repudiation of science. That's a proof of science, because we've used science to show that it's not true. Science is not a set of facts, neither is journalism. It's the methodology. It's the best methodology that we have come up with to get towards the truth. And I'm not saying that journalism is the only methodology. There's law enforcement. There's government inquiries. There's lots of methodologies for getting at truth. But journalism is certainly one of them. And when it falls short, that's not a damning revelation about the process. That's part of the process. We fall short all the time because truth is an unachievable, perfect, platonic, ideal objective that we're never going to hit. But getting it wrong is how we approach getting it less wrong. Man, I am blathering today. Edward Cranium says, absolutely, every TYT watcher should consume other sources of news, even if you believe it's news. Kat Redding says, that investigation is why I'm no longer a Christian. I'm fascinated what you're referring to, Kat, in terms of that investigation. It's probably something I referred to, but I'm curious if you don't mind sharing exactly what you're referring to. Karen Ola says, freshly showered. I hope that's not TMI for me to share, at 2 a.m. here in Tokyo. So Saturday, folks, see, told you. Slipped and fell on my tailbone on a marble floor at a client's office entrance yesterday. Oh no, woman mopping it watched me fall. I'm so sorry, Karen. I hope you're taking care of yourself. As an occasional part-time hedonist, I'm a big fan of self-care. So I hope you are doing what you need to and are getting the support you need, no pun intended. Rapid Burrito, I'm leaning forward because I had to see that the emojis are actually rapid burritos. Says, I rate this stream 5 out of 5. Thank you very much. Again, I was unprepared for class, so any credit due here is based off the material that you guys are giving me, so I appreciate it. Karen Ola says, came home from the doctor and work, made dinner, fell asleep until the House impeachment vote at 12 midnight my time, needed a shower. There's a lot to unpack in there. Ali J says, I'm from Detroit. Betsy DeVos does not deserve a pass on the CRAP she pushes in education. I did not mean to suggest that by any means. Every Secretary of Education should be held accountable to the fullest, most responsible extent. I just meant in this one occasion on showing up, I was being glib and tongue-in-cheek about her having showed up to a congressional hearing, not being familiar with the documents that have been national news in the run-up to her hearing. Rapper Burrito says, by the way, there really is more that could be told in reference to the Alamance 12. Someone like you could really shine extra light into voter suppression at a time where it's very relevant. I will confess that when it comes to voting machinery, that's a weak spot for me. We actually had Jennifer Cohn do some work for us, I think last year. She's terrific. She lives and breathes this stuff. And so we were lucky to be able to do some reporting on the voting machine aspect. I recognize that that's distinct from voter suppression. I'm a little better on voter suppression. If you have information about voter suppression efforts, whether it's patently illegal tactics, dirty tricks, phone calls, things like that, or something more sinister and more violent, scaring people away from polls, which of course actually literally happens, or whether you're talking about the legal variety, requiring people to travel dozens of miles to get an ID, as if you have to prove anything to anyone to exercise your right to vote. If you have evidence on any of that stuff that hasn't already been reported, because that's what we do here. TYT, the main channel, they talk about stories that are out there. TYT investigates, we put stories out there. So if it's not yet been reported, you can always drop us an email. You can use Proton Mail if you want to be confidential about it, and it's encrypted if it's Proton Mail on both ends, theyoungturks@protonmail.com. Anyone can send an email to that address from any other email, but if you want it to be encrypted, you have to send from Proton Mail to Proton Mail. That's my understanding anyway. Caranola says, thanks, Zane. Heart, that impeachment vote, and heart, Jonathan, heart here got me feeling way better. Heart. I'm glad to hear it, right? The physical definitely can be changed by the emotional and the mental. Matt Mungan says, I appreciate your demeanor and reluctance to condemn political actors. It makes you better at your job. I hope so. I could always be better. It's probably why some have unexpectedly spoken to you. They know they'll be treated fairly. Well, thank you for that, Matt. I appreciate that. They don't always think they're treated fairly. I will try to do my best. I will try to avoid the pitfalls of assuming things. But they can't know that they'll be treated fairly. That's why I'm especially impressed when people do choose to speak with me, especially when from the outside it would look as though I've got an axe to grind or I'm out to get them, when what I'm trying to do is to bring information to light. And if it's relevant to the presidential race, then I think then I am on the side of people should know about it. And if it turns out that that helps Pete Buttigieg by refuting damaging information or speculation that's out there about him or the cops under his tenure as mayor, then that's important too. If they're, for instance, I'll give you an example. I did a story last month about the timing of the investigation that is now underway into the South Bend Police Department shooting death of Eric Logan, who allegedly attacked Sergeant Ryan O'Neill with a knife during what appeared to be the commission of a crime. And the lawyer for Logan's family told me that, I don't remember when it was, maybe September, state investigators working for the special prosecutor told him that they expected to wrap up the case by December. Then it turned out that the state attorney general said in a letter, this case is not going to be wrapped up until February at the earliest. And there was a lot of speculation that, oh, this is being pushed back to hurt Buttigieg. If that's true, I want to know that. But if it's being pushed back into the middle of primary season, early primaries, maybe that hurts Buttigieg. The special prosecutor is a Republican, I'm pretty sure. The state attorney general is a Republican. Remember, it's a red state. If it turned out that they were doing something, manipulating the investigation to hurt Buttigieg, that is also a story. And I need to be open to that possibility, and I need to inquire and interrogate along those lines, because that matters too. And if it helps Buttigieg, that's the outcome. As a journalist, I'm not supposed to invest in outcomes other than that people have the information they need. Nationally, and also, because it has national implications, the people in South Bend. If the shooting death and by the way, there are implications not just for Eric Logan's family, but for Ryan O'Neill and his family. If the investigation is pushed back for 2 months, that's 2 more months in which he does not have resolution. If the investigation clears him, that's 2 more months in which he's not cleared officially or in the public eye. And I should not say cleared, because I don't think that the special investigator in this case has the, if in any, actually ever clears anyone. That tends to involve finding that someone else did something wrong. Prosecutors' jobs are not to exonerate people. They're either to file charges or not file charges. That said, in a case like this, if they end up not filing charges, that'll essentially be as if he were cleared. And in either case, the guy's going to have to live with the shadow of questions about it, but also the reality of it, right? that's something he's going to live with all of his life as well. And so I, as a human being, I try to be conscious of the implications for the other real people, all real people, who are bound up in all of these stories, but I try to divest myself from emotional investment in what the outcomes might be. I've broken stories before that had outcomes I was not happy about, that ran absolutely counter to where I was philosophically and politically. All you can do as a journalist is tell people, here's what I've found out. Do as thou wilt, that kind of thing. Anyway, thank you, Matt. Punks for Progress says, thanks so much again for the video plug and kind words. The music was original glitch grindcore noise. Well, I would not have guessed that I would be a fan of glitch grindcore noise, but I enjoyed it, so that was cool. And you should be able to post the link in the comments, Punks for Progress. So if you could put that video together, you can figure out how to post a link in the comments. Come on. DLJ says, hey, Jonathan, why? I don't know. Pear says, okay, then your Christmas tree is ugly. Oh, is that because I'm Swedish? I'm not following the logic there. I take it with the tongue-in-cheek spirit it's intended, but I'm not sure I understand the joke. Rapper Burrito says, which is why you were not exactly wrong about the homunculi convo, LOL, burrito. Caranola says, the national healthcare system is real, guys. My bill from that fall would have cost thousands. Stateside cost me just $20, including X-rays, consultation, and meds. Yeah. Sorry, would have cost thousands stateside, but because Karen is not stateside, it cost her $20. Matt Mungan, sorry, I scrolled and immediately lost you. Matt Mungan says, come on, Matt Mungan, where are you? Burritos everywhere I look. Matt Mungan says, however, saying that someone has sold their soul is just shorthand for saying that they have compromised express values for money or power. It's a fair accusation. I'm not saying you can't make the accusation. I just mean that it propagates what I find to be an unhelpful explanatory mechanism for human behavior. Zane says, amazing healthcare coverage. I assume referring to Karen's. Ali J says, excuse me, no, that looks like you're just buttoning up a conversation there. Caranola says, so somebody like Buttigieg not supporting Medicare for all and having the gall to criticize candidates for taking pocket change, as he calls our hard-earned dollars, to support progressives angers me. So I'm not super up on the policy debate here, but I think his position is that he supports Medicare for all, but you can choose not to have it if you don't want it. I think that's what he's saying, but don't trust me on that because I haven't done the policy legwork there. Caranola says, Buttigieg closes the door to us at his big donor drives. No transparency on the South Bend story Jonathan broke, so I have no regrets calling him a monstrous marionette. Well, you're certainly entitled. I personally try to avoid language that suggests something other than humanity at work. And I should be fair that there has been plenty of transparency from the city of South Bend. They released redacted, sure, but as far as I'm aware, redacted within the requirements of the existing judicial limitations on what they can release, but they did release it, confirming that the unredacted stuff that I saw was actually, that my claim that these documents existed was not made up. And they released a document that I did not have in any way, shape, or form, something like 64 pages out of 67. I'm making the numbers up, but the ratio was pretty good about how little was redacted. And it was Mike Schmuel's testimony, and the city turned that around pretty quickly. So the city of South Bend and the legal department there, thanks for all your help. Non-alcoholic, because it's Friday, but it's only 12:30 in the afternoon. Zane says, wow, you made my comment sound so dirty. That was not my intention, I don't think. Kat Redding says, gotta go, enjoy your weekend. You too, Kat, thanks so much. Travis says, I watch mainstream and independent news outlets and I research topics of the news I hear about, and while no one is perfect, you guys are usually on point and as honest as possible when reporting the news. Thank you, Travis. I appreciate that. And in defense of mainstream news, I learned a lot being in mainstream news for quite a long time. So I learned a lot by example, but also by negative example, to be clear. Sometimes like, oh, that's what they do? That's not good. Caranola says, what's that parent's fear face from Jonathan? Not having the money to get the kid to a quick clinic because we've got no single payer health system. Yeah, that's certainly a fear. Sam Teffler says, Jonathan, fact check, true. Jonathan, yes. Rapid Burrito says, very real question though. I adore your frames. Would you happen to know the specific model or brand? It says Esquire 1528 and it's in the logo of the magazine. So God help me, I think it might actually be, like the magazine decided to do frames for glasses, which I should probably be embarrassed about, but it was many years, if you can tell, because I don't think these, if they ever were, I don't think they're in style now. But next time it's probably Warby Parker's for me, because it was more money than I should have paid for frames. But thank you, Rapid Burrito. I hope I've given you enough of a lead to track down something that works for you. Caranola says, nothing dirty about getting taken good care of. Oh, is that? Yeah. I'm not sure what you guys think I mean by self-care, but I mean generally self-care. So glad the plan you're on helped you avoid that unbelievable bill. That kind of money is unheard of anywhere but the US. Really cool says, stick to your guns, Jonathan. You have our trust. Thank you very much. I will accept your trust if it's in the form of some sort of faith of our best intentions. But I would also ask that you still be skeptical about our execution. As good as our intentions may be, we screw up. We put corrections on our articles because sometimes we don't get all the facts. Sometimes we don't correctly understand the facts that we do have. Sometimes we only see a part of the picture. So trust but verify, I guess, to steal a phrase from President Reagan. But thank you very much. I appreciate the sentiment behind it. Really cool. Thank you. Rapid Burrito says, so I will forward that info. Is it TYT at Proton or the Young Turks at Proton? It's actually the Young Turks at protonmail.com, I believe. The Young Turks at protonmail.com. Francis Wolf says, hey y'all. Hey Francis. Caranola suggests that people check out Greg Palast on Chris Kobach regarding voter suppression. Zane has love for Greg Palast. Francis Wolf says, glad I caught y'all. I just got to California. My clock is off. I'm visiting, but also progressive grannies canvassing for Bernie. Way to go, anyone getting engaged. Thank you, grannies and otherwise. Okay, so Punks for Progress says, your stupid live chat settings won't let me link the stupid video, but people should just check our channel. So here's what I'm saying. Separately from the live chat, once the live chat is dead, you can go into the comments section, which is a different section on the video. You should know this. You have your own YouTube channel, and you should be able to post a link. If you can't, post at least a comment so that I see that you can post the comment, and I'll figure out a way to boost the link, okay? But I did share the link on Twitter, I think. I'm at JT Larson, literally at JT Larson on Twitter. Okay. Punks for Progress says, we do a whole lot more than music. We've been in the street confronting fascism for years. All the contributors to P4P are organizers individually from all around the country. Ali J says, gotta go have lunch with the mother-in-law. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Yeah, we've been talking for a while, so we'll wrap it up. If you guys need to go, that's okay. Carnella says, that is good that the city of South Bend and their legal department released the documents with very little redaction. And I just to be clear, I don't know if they did redact stuff that they shouldn't have, but they certainly released stuff that I would imagine the campaign was not happy to see out there. Rapid Burrito has already found the frames, so you should probably have my job. Carnella says, where's the kitty, Jonathan? So if you're a regular viewer, you know that about half the time I forget to lock my cat away, and she usually comes up on my lap, on the keyboard, attacking the camera, usually when I'm talking about something horrible and tragic and sad. And today I forgot to lock her away, but she's not around. So the answer is, I don't know where she is right now. Francis Wolf says, yes, but when you screw up, you say you screw up. This is why we can trust you. Thank you very much. I'm sure there are people who would argue that we have screwed up and have not said it. Reasonable people can disagree. Okay. All right. I am caught up. And my voice is going. And I think I've been talking long enough to satisfy X-Force, who, by the way, not here today. What's that about? So I'm going to say, have a great weekend. Thanks so much for all your support and your kind words. Please take care of each other. Please take care of yourselves, especially during holiday season when it can be tough on people. Remember, the holidays, everything else, this too shall pass. If it helps, come on back here on Monday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and we'll talk about it. Take care, guys. Bye.